Awaken your divine feminine energy, reclaim your inner goddess, heal your wounded inner child, and embody sacred femininity to manifest the life you were born for. By Seraphine Vale. Introduction. In 1908, the world was rushing toward the future. In the Austro-Hungarian Empire, workers were busy carving out a path for a new railway near the village of Willendorf. It was a time of loud machines, heavy coal smoke, and the belief that humans could finally conquer nature. The earth was being ripped open to make room for progress, for speed, and for a world built by the hands of men. While the noise of pickaxes filled the air, a worker named Johann Varon reached into the cool, damp clay. His fingers brushed against something small and hard. It wasn't a rock, and it wasn't a piece of coal. He pulled it out and wiped away the dirt. There, sitting in the palm of his hand, was a tiny stone woman. She was only 4 inches tall, carved from limestone and tinted with red dust. She had no face, but her body was full and round. Her breasts were heavy, her belly was wide, and her presence was massive. Scientists would later name her the Venus of Willendorf. They estimated she had been resting in that dark earth for 25,000 years. At first, the men who found her didn't know what to make of her. In a world that valued thinness, speed, and logic, this little statue looked primitive, or even wrong. They saw her as a curiosity from a time when people didn't know better. They didn't realize they were looking at the oldest symbol of the Great Mother. She was a reminder of a time when the world wasn't a place to be conquered, but a body to be loved. She was the divine feminine, buried under layers of progress, waiting for someone to find her again. Today, many of us are like that railway site. We are covered in the dust of doing. We are buried under the noise of the hustle, the pressure to produce, and the need to be one of the boys just to get a seat at the table. We have built high-speed lives, but in the process we have buried the very thing that makes us feel alive. The ghost in the glass. High above the streets of Chicago, the lights of the loop flicker like a million tiny fires. It is 9:00 p.m. on a Tuesday. The cleaning crew has already finished the floors on the lower levels, but on the 42nd floor, the lights are still burning bright. Sarah Jenkins sits at her desk, surrounded by stacks of legal briefs that look like small paper towers. She is 34 years old, and on paper, she is winning. She is a senior corporate litigation attorney. She has the title, the salary, and a husband named Mark, who tries his best to understand why she's never home for dinner. Sarah reaches for her coffee cup, but it's cold. Again. She looks at the blinking cursor on her computer screen. Her heart starts to beat a little too fast. It feels like a small bird trapped in her chest, flapping its wings against her ribs. She can't breathe. Instead of crying, Sarah stands up and begins to organize her pens. Black pens in another. Highlighters lined up by color. If she can just keep things orderly, she thinks, the panic will stay away. If she can just work one more hour, she will finally feel like she has done enough. She catches her reflection in the dark window. For a second, she doesn't recognize the woman looking back. The woman in the glass looks hollow. Her eyes are tired, and her skin looks as gray as the city streets below. Sarah realizes she has become a ghost in her own life. She is high-functioning, but she is emotionally dead. She is successful, but she is empty. Sarah is a wounded achiever. She has spent her whole life using her masculine energy to climb a ladder that doesn't lead anywhere she actually wants to go. She believes her value is tied to her billable hours. She believes that to be powerful, she must suppress her emotions, ignore her body, and never ever show weakness. She is living in a world that has forgotten the stone woman in the clay. She has forgotten how to be, because she is too busy doing. The famine of the soul. If Sarah's story sounds familiar, it's because we are living through a secret famine. It isn't a lack of food or money. It is a famine of the soul. For thousands of years, the world has operated on a lopsided energy. We have valued the sun energy, the masculine traits of logic, competition, protection, and linear growth. This energy is important. It builds bridges, sets boundaries, and gets things done. But without the moon energy, the feminine traits of intuition, receptivity, flow, and nurturing, the sun energy becomes a wildfire. It burns us out. It turns our lives into a series of tasks instead of a journey of joy. You might feel this famine in your own life as a constant sense of not enoughness. You feel like you have to work twice as hard to get half the respect. You have forgotten what your gut feels like because you're too busy listening to your head. You feel guilty when you rest, as if every minute not spent being productive is a minute wasted. You feel disconnected from your own body, treating it like a machine that just needs more caffeine to keep going. This isn't just stress. This is the result of a great disconnection. Somewhere along the way, we were told that our magic was a weakness. We were told that our cycles were a curse. We were told that our knowing was just imagination. But the divine feminine cannot be destroyed. She can only be suppressed. Like the Venus of Willendorf, she is still there, resting beneath the surface, waiting for you to stop digging the railway and start reaching into the earth. What this journey offers. This book is not a guide on how to be more feminine by wearing certain clothes or acting a certain way. This is a reclamation. It is about waking up a power that is already inside you, even if it has been asleep for decades. By the end of these pages, you will not be a different person. You will be the person you were born to be before the world told you who you should be. You will move from being a wounded achiever to becoming a radiant goddess. You will learn to release the hustle trap and move into a state of flow, where opportunities come to you because of your magnetism, not just your sweat. You will heal the old wounds from your past, the mother wound and father wound, that keep you stuck in the same painful relationship patterns. You will stop second-guessing yourself. You will reclaim your intuitive authority, so you can make decisions with a quiet, unshakable certainty. You will learn how to set boundaries that feel like a sanctuary, not a prison. You will learn that no is a holy word. Moving past shame and into a place where your body is a source of pleasure and wisdom. This is a path of manifestation with magnetism. In the masculine world, we are taught to chase. We hunt our goals. We track them down. But the feminine way is to attract. When you are in your power, you don't have to run after the life you want. You become the flame that the moths naturally fly toward. Why this path works. You might wonder if this is all just wishful thinking, but the truth of the divine feminine is backed by history, psychology, and the lived experience of millions of women who have finally said, enough. We will look at the lives of women who kept the flame alive when the world tried to put it out. We will walk with Hypatia of Alexandria, the brilliant philosopher who showed that the mind and the spirit are one. We will listen to the visions of Hildegard von Bingen, who found God in the greenness of the earth and the beauty of music. We will stand with Lakshmi Bai, the warrior queen of Jhansi, who proved that a woman's no can shake an empire. These aren't just stories from the past. They are blueprints for your future. Their lives show us that when a woman connects to her sacred energy, she becomes unstoppable. She doesn't have to choose between being powerful and being soft. She can be both. She is both. This approach works because it addresses the root, not just the leaves. We aren't just changing your habits, we are changing your vibration. We are healing the wounded child who learned that she had to be good or perfect to be loved. We are inviting that child to step into the light and become the goddess she was always meant to be. Meet Sarah again. As we go through this book, we will follow Sarah Jenkins on her journey. Right now, she is at her rock bottom. She is staring at her cold coffee in a dark office, wondering if this is all there is. She is terrified that if she stops working, she will disappear. But over the next 20 chapters, we will watch Sarah do the unthinkable. We will watch her buy a book she doesn't need. We will watch her visit her childhood home and finally see the masks she's been wearing. We will watch her find her sacred rage, set her first real boundary, and eventually lead her life with a grace that makes people stop and stare when she enters a room. Sarah is you. Her struggles are your struggles. And her victory will be your victory. The roadmap ahead. Our journey is divided into 3 parts. First, we will look at the history and the hurt. We will understand why the modern woman lost her magic and identify the 3 masks of the wounded child that keep us hidden. We will explore the desert of the heart, that dry place we all hit when we realize the hustle isn't working anymore. Second, we will move into the healing. We will learn the sacred architecture of boundaries. We will reclaim the wisdom of our bodies and our cycles. We will learn how to turn our anger into a holy fire that clears the path for something new. We will do the deep work of forgiving our past and our mothers, so we can finally be free. Finally, we will step into the radiant embodiment. We will learn how to balance our inner masculine and feminine, So they work as a team. We will open the 7 portals of intuition and learn the secrets of magnetic manifestation. We will break the social mirror that tells us we are never pretty enough or young enough, and we will step into our roles as leaders in a new world. The little stone woman, found in 1908, didn't have a face because she was meant to have your face. She was a placeholder for every woman who would come after her. She was a promise that no matter how deep you are buried under the dirt of the world, you can always be found. You are not a machine. You are not a ghost. You are a living, breathing expression of the divine. It is time to stop digging the railway and start remembering the goddess. The earth is ready. The clay is soft. Your power is waiting. Chapter 1. Why has the modern woman lost her magic? Reserve your right to think, for even to think wrongly is better than not to think at all. The words drifted through the lecture hall in Alexandria, Egypt, around the year 400 AD. The air inside the room was heavy with the scent of old scrolls, dry heat, and the salt of the nearby Mediterranean Sea. The men sitting on the stone benches were the most powerful leaders, thinkers, and students of the era. They didn't just listen to the woman standing at the front of the room, they leaned in. They held their breath. This woman was Hypatia. She was a master of math, a teacher of the stars, and a leader of the mind. In a world where women were often told to stay quiet and stay hidden, Hypatia was a beacon. She didn't choose between logic and spirit. She didn't pick between being smart and being soulful. To her, the way a planet moved across the sky was just as sacred as a prayer. She represented a perfect balance. She was the sacred intellectual feminine, a woman who owned her power, used her voice, and led with a grace that made the world stop and watch. But outside that hall, the world was changing. A new way of thinking was taking over. It was a way of thinking that didn't like circles. It liked straight lines. It didn't like mystery. It liked control. It didn't like women who could think for themselves and lead others toward the light. Political and religious leaders felt their grip on the people slipping. They saw Hypatia's wisdom not as a gift, but as a threat. One afternoon in 415 AD, the tension snapped. A mob, fueled by fear and told that this woman's magic was dangerous, dragged Hypatia from her carriage. They didn't just want to stop her, they wanted to erase her. They tore her clothes, used sharpened shells to harm her, and eventually ended her life. They burned her books. They tried to burn the memory of her. Her death was more than a tragedy for one woman. It was a signal to every woman who came after her. It marked the end of an era where the feminine mind was honored as a source of divine wisdom. For hundreds of years afterward, the magic that women carried, the intuition, the connection to nature, and the deep, quiet knowing, was pushed into the shadows. We stopped looking at the moon to understand our internal tides and started looking at the clock to see if we were working hard enough. The myth of the only way. For a long time, we have been told a story. It's a story about how to be successful, how to be happy, and how to make it in the world. You've probably heard it since you were a little girl. The story says that if you want to win, you have to be tough. You have to be faster than the person next to you. You have to push down your feelings because they make you unreliable, moving from point A to point B without ever stopping to smell a flower or listen to your gut. We believe this story because we see it everywhere. We see it in the high-rise offices where people work until their eyes burn. We see it in the way we reward the hustle. We call it the masculine architecture of life. It's built on doing, building, and conquering. And there is nothing wrong with masculine energy. It's the structure that helps us get things done. But when it's the only thing we have, we start to wither. The myth is that this way of living is the only way to be valuable. We've been led to believe that if we aren't producing something, we aren't worth anything. This is why so many women feel like they are losing their magic. We are trying to plant seeds in a world made of concrete. We are trying to follow a straight line when our souls were born to move in circles, like the seasons and the stars. The truth is that you don't have to act like one of the boys to change the world. In fact, the world is exhausted because it has been missing the feminine half of the puzzle for too long. When we only value doing, we lose the power of being. When we only value logic, we lose the power of intuition. We have been taught to fear our own softness, but that softness is actually where our greatest strength is hidden. Sarah's long night in the city. Sarah Jenkins stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of her office on the 42nd floor. It was 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. Below her, the lights of Chicago looked like a circuit board, bright, humming, and completely cold. She had a legal brief open on her desk that needed 10 more hours of work. Her third cup of coffee sat next to her, stone cold and topped with a thin film of dust. Sarah was the wounded achiever. On paper, she was a star. She was a senior attorney. She made more money than her parents ever dreamed of, and her husband, Mark, was kind and supportive. But as she looked at her reflection in the dark glass of the window, she didn't see a star. She saw a ghost. Her skin looked pale under the buzzing office lights. Her eyes looked flat. Suddenly, her chest tightened. It felt like a heavy hand was pressing down on her heart. She couldn't catch her breath. Not now, she thought. I don't have time for a panic attack. I have a deadline. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. Instead, she sat down and began to organize her pens. She lined them up by color. Then, she straightened the stacks of paper on her desk until every corner was perfectly square. This was how Sarah survived. She turned her feelings into tasks. She turned her anxiety into productivity. But even as she sat there, perfectly organized and successful, she felt a deep, hollow ache. She felt like a traveler who had been walking through a desert for years, forgot why she started walking, and realized she had run out of water a long time ago. The Great Disconnection. What Sarah was feeling is what many women face today, the Great Disconnection. This isn't just about being tired or stressed. It's a historical wound. It's the result of centuries of being told that the things that make us feminine are extra, or distractions. Think about the difference between a clock and the moon. A clock moves in a straight, never-ending line. It doesn't care if you are tired. It doesn't care if it's winter or summer. It just keeps ticking. This is masculine architecture. The moon, however, moves in a cycle. It grows full and bright, and then it slowly disappears into the dark to rest before starting again. This is feminine architecture. For a long time, humanity lived by the moon. We understood that life has seasons. We knew there was a time to plant and a time to let the field stay quiet. We threw away the moon and kept only the clock. We began to value linear progress over cyclical growth. This disconnection affects our bodies too. We are told to have the same amount of energy every single day of the month. We are told to ignore the gut feeling that says a deal is bad because the data says it's good. When we disconnect from our internal rhythms, we lose our magic. We lose that spark of life that makes us feel vibrant, creative, and connected to something bigger than our to-do list. The bookstore in the loop. A few days after her pens and paper night, Sarah found herself walking past a small, dusty bookstore tucked between two massive glass towers. Usually, she would have marched right past it to get to her train, but something stopped her. It was a feeling, a small, quiet tug in her belly. She walked inside. The air smelled like vanilla and old paper. It was quiet. Sarah wandered to the back of the store, her hand trailing along the spines of books. She usually only read Case Law Weekly or books about how to be a better leader. But her fingers stopped on a book about ancient history and mythology. She opened a page and saw a name, Hypatia. As she read about the woman from Alexandria, a strange, phantom pain flared in Sarah's chest. It wasn't the tightness of a panic attack. It was a sharp, burning sensation, like a memory she had forgotten she owned. She read about how Hypatia used the stars to find her way. She read about the mirror of the moon, the ancient idea that a woman's heart is like the moon, reflecting a light that comes from deep within. Sarah felt a wave of guilt. Why am I wasting time? She thought. I should be reading that new brief. I'm being unproductive. But for the first time in years, she didn't listen to that voice. She bought the book. As she walked out into the cold Chicago wind, she clutched the paper bag to her chest like it was a shield. She was beginning to realize that the hustle hadn't just made her tired, it had made her a stranger to herself. The mirror of the moon. In the ancient world, the moon was seen as the great mother. Women would sit together under the light of the moon to talk, to heal, and to plan for the future. They understood that the moon didn't have its own light. It reflected the sun. But in that reflection, the light became softer. It became something you could look at without hurting your eyes. It revealed things that the bright, harsh sun of the day kept hidden. This is the metaphor for your own feminine energy. When you are in your sun energy, you are doing, you are shining, you are working, you are out there in the world. But if you never move into your moon energy, you burn out. You become a scorched earth. The mirror of the moon is your ability to sit in silence and reflect on who you really are when no one is watching. It is your intuition. It is that voice that whispers, "This doesn't feel right," even when everyone else is saying yes. When we lose our magic, it's often because our mirror is cracked. It's covered in the dust of other people's expectations. We spend so much time reflecting what our bosses want, what our partners want, and what society wants, that we forget how to reflect our own soul. Sarah looked at her reflection in the bookstore window. She saw a woman who was trying very hard to be a sun, but she was exhausted from the heat. She needed to find her moon again. She needed to remember that her value wasn't just in what she could produce, but in who she was when she was simply being. The architecture of your soul. To reclaim your magic, you have to understand the two types of power living inside you. The masculine energy is the walls, the roof, and the floor. It provides the safety and the structure. It's the part of you that sets a goal and finishes it. It's the part of you that says no to something that isn't good for you. Without these walls, the water of your life would just spill out and disappear. The feminine energy is the life inside the building. It's the warmth of the fire in the fireplace. It's the art on the walls. It's the way the rooms feel when you walk into them. It's the music, the laughter, and the dreams that happen in the dark. For most of us, we have spent our lives building the walls. We have the best floors and the strongest roof. But the house is empty. There is no fire. There is no music. We have the structure of a successful life, but we don't have the soul of a happy one. Reclaiming your divine feminine energy isn't about tearing down the walls. It's about finally moving into the house. It's about realizing that you can be strong and soft. You can be smart and intuitive. You can be a leader and a healer. Hypatia knew this. She didn't stop being a mathematician to be a mystic. She was both at the same time. Her magic came from the fact that she refused to be split in half. Why we hide? If this energy is so powerful, why did we let it go? Why did Sarah Jenkins spend 15 years trying to turn herself into a robot? We hide our magic because we were taught that it's dangerous. History shows us that when women stand in their full power, when they are too loud, too smart, or too intuitive, the world often tries to quiet them. Whether it was the literal death of Hypatia, or the way a modern girl is told she is too emotional in a business meeting, the message is the same. Stay small, stay quiet. Be like the men if you want to be safe. This creates a witch wound. It's a deep ancestral fear that if we show our true radiant selves, we will be rejected, punished, or left alone. So, we put on masks. We put on the overachiever mask, or the people-pleaser mask. We become the woman who always has it together, even while she is falling apart inside. But the cost of that safety is our soul. When we hide our magic to stay safe, we end up living a life that feels like someone else's. We win the awards, we get the promotions, and we check all the boxes. But we wake up at 3 a.m. wondering why we feel so empty. The turning point. Sarah's journey didn't start with a giant explosion. It started with a book and a feeling. It started with the realization that she was tired of being a ghost. She was tired of the hustle trap. She was ready to stop chasing her life and start attracting it. The magic hasn't actually left you. It isn't something you have to go out and buy or learn from a difficult course. It is like an underground spring. You might have paved over it with layers of to-do lists and shoulds, but the water is still there, waiting for a crack in the concrete so it can bubble up to the surface. Reclaiming this energy is an act of rebellion. In a world that wants you to be a machine, choosing to be a goddess is the most powerful thing you can do. It means you are deciding that your joy matters more than your output. It means you are deciding that your intuition is a better guide than your calendar. As you move through these pages, you aren't becoming something new. You are unbecoming everything that isn't you. You are shedding the layers of dust from your mirror, so you can finally see the radiant, powerful, and magical woman who has been there all along. The challenge. Look at your life today. Not the life people see on your social media, or the life your boss sees in your performance review. Look at the life you feel when you are brushing your teeth at night, or sitting in your car after a long day of work. When was the last time you made a decision based entirely on a feeling in your gut, even if it didn't make sense on paper? When was the last time you felt magic, that sense of awe, wonder, or deep connection to the world around you, instead of just feeling busy. If you can't remember, don't be afraid. That just means your moon has been behind a cloud for a while. It's still there. The first step to finding your magic is admitting that you miss it. The second step is being brave enough to stop the doing long enough to listen to the being. Are you willing to let the perfect version of yourself die so that the real version of you can finally breathe? The journey back to your divine feminine energy is not a straight line. It is a winding path, a circle, and a dance. It is the path Hypatia walked until her final breath. It is the path Sarah Jenkins is just beginning to find in the middle of a crowded city. And it is the path that is waiting for you, right now, exactly where you are. It is time to stop being a ghost in your own life. It is time to reclaim your crown. Chapter 2. The Three Masks of the Wounded Child. In the spring of 1536, the gardens at Hampton Court Palace were bursting with new life. The air smelled of damp earth and early roses. Inside the stone walls, a 3-year-old girl named Elizabeth played in rooms filled with heavy velvet and the quiet whispers of servants. She was the daughter of a king, living in a world where every floor was polished to a shine, and every person bowed when she passed. It was a scene of perfect peace. But outside that quiet room, the world was shifting in a way that would change her forever. Her mother, Anne Boleyn, had fallen out of favor with King Henry VIII. In a matter of days, the woman who gave Elizabeth life was gone, executed on a patch of grass at the Tower of London. Young Elizabeth was moved from the palace to a smaller house in the country. The servants who used to bow now looked at her with pity or stayed away entirely. She was no longer a princess in their eyes. She was a bastard child whose mother had died in shame. Even at 3 years old, a child feels the sudden chill when the warmth of love and safety is pulled away. Elizabeth did not have the words to describe her grief, but she had eyes to see the danger. She saw her father marry woman after woman. She watched as some of those women died in childbirth, and others lost their heads, just like her mother. To survive in the Tudor court, Elizabeth learned a hard lesson early. Being a normal woman was dangerous. Vulnerability led to the grave. To stay alive, she had to build a wall around her heart. She began to act more like a scholar and a strategist than a young girl. She studied languages, history, and politics, with a focus that scared her teachers. She was building a mask. She wanted to prove she was stout and more than a woman. She decided that if she could be the smartest, the most controlled, and the most useful person in the room, the king might let her live. By the time she became queen, the mask was no longer just a way of acting. It became a physical thing. Elizabeth started wearing a thick layer of white makeup made from white lead and vinegar. It was called ceruse. It covered every freckle, every line of worry, and every human flaw. It made her face look like a marble statue. Perfect, unmoving, and cold. People called her the Virgin Queen. She told her people she was married to England, not to a man. By refusing to marry, she avoided the weakness that had killed the women before her. She was powerful, she was successful, and she was safe. But underneath that lead-white mask, the little girl who lost her mother was still hiding, shivering in the dark, never allowed to come out and breathe. The cost of the painted face. Elizabeth's story is a grand version of a story many women live today. We may not wear lead makeup or live in stone castles. When the world feels unsafe, or when we feel we aren't enough just as we are, we start building. We look at the people around us and figure out what they want. Do they want us to be quiet? Do they want us to be the best? Do they want us to take care of everyone else? We pick up these roles like pieces of armor. In psychology, these are often called survival mechanisms. They are the habits we formed as children to make sure we were loved, or at least left alone. The problem is that armor is heavy. It protects you from getting hurt, but it also stops you from being touched. It stops the sun from reaching your skin. For a woman trying to connect with her feminine energy, this armor acts like a dam in a river. The water wants to flow, to be soft, and to move with the seasons, but the heavy stone of the mask keeps everything frozen in place. Alice Miller was a woman who spent her life studying why we do this. In her famous work, The Drama of the Gifted Child, she looked at how children who are very sensitive or gifted often lose themselves. These children can sense exactly what their parents need. If a mother is sad, the child becomes the clown to make her laugh. If a father is stressed about money, The child becomes the perfect student, so he has one less thing to worry about. Miller